And what I'd say is that the proper way of being in relationship to what's happening in this milieu, into the domain or the scene of Web3, is the necessity of becoming artist on the part of effectively everyone. Decentralized organizations, in principle, have the capacity to produce a level of collective intelligence that isn't limited in the way that hierarchical bureaucratic organizations are. You can include more people more fully and more in a more integrated way, both in terms of their perception, i.e. what do they perceive as being real and valuable, and in terms of their agency. How do they deploy their skillfulness and capacity in relationship to, right? DAOs are actually beginning to emerge as a super real thing and are beginning to discover the limitations of our competence on the interior side. But in terms of the interior, how do human beings actually take care of the human part? It's almost like been a blind spot, right? DAO space, I think, is not going to be able to resolve that. I can deal with and use the resolutions to the Byzantine general problem between and among DAOs. But in the inside, I got people. Right? I got real life people. And that, I think, is the challenge. I don't think. That's the challenge. And that's the challenge that part of the environment is facing right now. And here I'd actually point somewhat humorously to the notion of vibes. And what I'd say is that the proper way of being in relationship to what's happening in this milieu, into the domain or the scene of Web3, is the necessity of becoming artist on the part of effectively everyone. One must actually learn how to build and attune their aesthetic sense, which is to say, to attune their capacity to perceive quality, to feel richly and with clarity and subtlety, and then behave accordingly. Right? And this is, I think I've spoken about this in other contexts. How does a musician who is playing, not on sheet music, but playing in flow, know what the next note ought to be? Now, it's interesting, isn't it? It's a knowing. It's a knowing that has lots of moment to it. Because if you play the wrong note, it's bad. In fact, in many ways, profane. And yet it's possible. It's possible to land just the right note that holds the whole song in continuity and brings what's trying to manifest itself into the world cleanly. Kind of a weird way to manage an organization, right? That's what I'm saying. That's actually what has to happen. Like I'm telling you right now, Web3, you're going to have to become artists. All of you, in a deep sense. And as it turns out, the competence and capacity to navigate through the process of moving from being engineers to being artists turns out to also invoke the capacity to then be stewards. Right? Underneath or as a result of the capacity to become an artist, you then also develop the capacity to become a steward. And the choice making that begins to emerge at the individual and the group and the collective level will intrinsically begin to migrate towards what we would say the ethical or that form of choice making which is properly sovereign. So a way of saying it is that Web3 must become truly sovereign, capital T, capital S, in the way that we've spoken about it ourselves. I don't know how much wisdom there is in those who are available to participate in Web3. Here's something I would say to my own generation. If you have any clue, you know that Web3 is a thing. Like whatever's causing you to sort of either poo-poo it or piss on it or not engage in it, I tell you right now, get over it. Bring your wisdom. If you have wisdom to bring that, and precisely just that. Do not bring your trauma, do not bring your cynicism, right? Bring your wisdom and gift that wisdom into these people who are building and will live in the world that they're building. Perhaps with your children if you're lucky. And so that's the way I would say it.